Live, and we're live. All right, everybody, welcome to, I think this is the 32nd episode of the Crypto Mining Tools podcast. I'm your host, Scott Offord, and we have our co-host, Ethan Zerka.
Hey, everybody. Don't worry, it'll grow back someday.
Yeah, you might not
promise.
recognize him today if you're watching on video. Took me by surprise when he first hopped on. But yeah, anyway, today we're here with Charlie Spears.
Yes,
And
Charlie.
Christian, I can't remember your last name.
Christian Krautter.
All right, awesome. I'm glad to have you guys here today, and we're going to be talking about a few different things: oil and gas, Bitcoin, GPU, ASIC, right? All that awesome stuff. And actually, I met Charlie online. I don't know, a few months ago. He was talking. I don't know. He had this Bitcoin, gas and oil. I don't know, something having to do with a podcast. And I was like, hey, this guy seems to know some stuff, and he seems to be into crypto. I'm gonna see if he wants to come on my podcast. And I finally convinced you to come on to my podcast.
Well, it's good to be here, Scott. Thank you. And don't worry, Ethan, I have enough hair for both of us. Quarantine's been good to me, and not to my barber.
Yeah. Take off your hat.
I don't know if I want to. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
It's
super.
Oh
wow.
Oh man.
Take a shower.
I'm in a band too. I'm a drummer, so I have to look somewhat, in the scene too.
Right.
Yeah.
You got a headbang and it's got to go flying.
Yep.
So, well, we know that you guys are into this thing a little bit, and why don't we just start by you telling us a little bit about what you guys do, what your day jobs might be, and what some of your projects that you're into, and then we'll kind of just go from there.
All right, you want me to start? All right.
Yeah.
So I started in cryptocurrency mining, I would say 2017. Just had other business that had some hardware, built it up, and eventually grew it into what is now Colossus Processing, which is, to my knowledge, one of the larger data centers of its type of GPU in the GPU mining world. So we host some 1,000 GPUs, and I transitioned that business, as the GPUs profitability, the booming kind of dropped off. I transitioned it more to the render farming world, so working with animation workloads. And partnered with a pretty awesome company in the space, Otoy, who they have a project called Render Token, which is blockchain distributed render farming. And so we're pretty key partners there with them. So that's a really exciting implementation. I feel like a utility token for cryptocurrency, really getting the best out of just this high availability of GPUs. From there, worked more and more. Yes, on the folding it home project.
We can talk about that down the road.
Yeah. And so basically anything and everything that we can put a data center to work towards, I've had my foot in. As we continued, kind of realized we needed more and more software solutions to really maximize the efficiency. And so I developed and am working on a project called Optimize. It's actually running up here in the background. But yeah, pretty much when you're dealing with thousands of GPUs, you just have to have a way to look out for everything. So I've been doing that as well. And most recently been partnering and working with Charlie. And I'll let Charlie talk more about that.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a longtime Tulsan here. I'm broadcasting out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the northeast little corner of the panhandle-looking state, Oklahoma. And I had it in my head that I wanted to be a petroleum engineer back in 2008. So I started studying petroleum engineering at the University of Tulsa, great school for that. Found out that wasn't my thing, so I fled to the business school and thought I was going to go into news broadcasting. I spent some time working for the local National Public Radio affiliate. But towards the end of my college career, I was doing a project for a small consulting business that my family runs, and I realized the scope of this was 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold, and that led to the creation of Oilfield Logix, which is a oil and gas data mining business. I collect data about how wells are drilled in North America. Yeah. And so the kind of the bread and butter is a database that I maintain and a partnership with the family business to produce a series of market reports that describe various aspects of the oil and gas, of the drilling and completions business. So through, alongside that, over the past 8 years, I discovered Bitcoin and became kind of fascinated with it. And I never really dipped my toe into the mining side. I was more in the just, this is such a cool concept. This is a great way to make dollars, which then transitioned into, well, I actually just want to own Bitcoin directly. So about a year ago, looking at the macro environment for the domestic natural gas market and seeing the transition in the Bitcoin mining space to prioritizing reducing operating cost, dirt cheap power, I saw that this was just a marriage. It was a match made in heaven, and only one party really saw the opportunity, and that was the Bitcoin mining or ASIC mining world.
Sure, because they need the power.
Yeah, they need
the power guys. Like, we don't care about these machines. What do they do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I said, we use space age technology to drill wells, but as far as talking or describing how we drill wells, that's still in the 1970s. This is an industry that runs off the Rolodex still. Like, you kind of got to know a guy who knows a guy to get anything done in that business.
I've noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I can talk more about how that works and why we have an oil and gas guy on the team who's not me. We need somebody who's much more knowledgeable than I am. But I just said, okay, I got to get into this. I'm perfectly positioned to kick this can to the road and make it happen. So I bought some ASICs. So my first ASICs were from Scott through one of his channels.
So are mine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's are. And through that, as I was trying to find a place to put them, that led me to Christian, who I guess we've kind of been mutual friends for a long. I forget. I don't know.
How did you guys come to meet?
So actually, a buddy of mine I went to high school with, who's also part of our team, Nathan Means. He actually introduced me to Charlie. Back, I guess this would be about a year ago. And so from there, we just kind of kept talking, and at first I was pretty skeptical. Like, the whole gas flare idea was something like I just never considered. I was really heavily researching and leaning towards just some renewable energy options, but it looked pretty tight, and going that route when you looked at it, and it posed a lot of difficulties. The more we kind of discussed and worked on this natural gas. And sort of as I realized, we have this incredible event. I mean, you have this historic falling out of the oil and gas industry like we've just never seen.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also have the Bitcoin halving events occurring. You just see this tremendous opportunity emerging from the resulting sell-offs of both industries. So it's really a fascinating time, and a fascinating thing to witness and act on, is just bringing these two industries that are relatively in the dumps. They can really do something special together.
Yeah, it was a good idea to mine off natural gas before this whole double black swan event, if you want to say. But now it's even better. We are literally at, the trough of these two cyclical industries. The harmonization is incredible here. So I'm actually kind of glad that I wasn't able to get team and capital committed towards this venture until recently, because now it's really just the stars have aligned. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to hear Charlie say, in the oil and gas field, you really have to know a guy that knows a guy, and then Christian to say, well, he was a little skeptical as well. So we got both industries, the crypto and the oil, kind of both very
weary of each other. Yeah, not
more like foreign industries to each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of it probably us having, the ultimate, realization and understanding between each other's industries is, partly due to the fact that, I'm in Oklahoma. If you live in Oklahoma or Texas, every other person is in some way tangentially involved in the oil and gas business.
Yeah,
and
Tulsa is the former oil capital of the world. I mean, the first half of last century was defined by Tulsa literally at the center of the global oil production industry.
One of the things that I found out that was very fascinating about the oil and gas industry is that this flare gas is a natural side effect of drilling, and they have to do something with it. And many times it's just not economically viable to build a pipeline and ship it off. It's not economically viable to take the generators, the turbines that run off of it, and build transmission lines out to a transmission station or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so what they end up doing is they end up paying incredible fines to the EPA. I mean, enormous sums of money, and just burning it off. Mm-hmm. And I do think that our industry, crypto mining, is a perfect solution, because we can put these miners into a shipping container. We can take them to very remote places, and we can literally turn that waste into wealth. Mm-hmm. And I find that fascinating. Yeah.
You make the environmentalists happy because you're reducing emissions, and you make the hardcore capitalists happy because you're making money off of a wasted revenue source.
And what other implementation can you think of that's this scalable, that is this geographically agnostic, where if you have an internet connection, which we have satellites, so you have an internet connection that is adequate for what we're doing. It's such a brilliant fit. So we're so tremendously excited to be involved in it.
Yeah, one thing I haven't heard yet spoken about much on any podcast or anything is why we find ourselves at this point. So Ethan, you mentioned that whenever you drill a well, there's associated gas that's produced, mm-hmm. and we've been drilling wells for oil right now, but that actually hasn't always been the case. Actually, for the majority of the last half of last century, we were drilling gas wells. Mm-hmm. I mean, up until about the mid 2000s, we were drilling wells for gas, and the oil was kind of a byproduct. Now we are drilling wells for oil, and that's really because of the advent of hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, which unlocked the defining domestic resource of U.S. shale. So now we've been drilling all these giant wells in shale plays, and we've been drilling that for oil. And because of that, we have had the natural gas market collapse, because there's just been this oversupply of gas. And it really doesn't look optimistic for the time being. We might see natural gas spike to like $6 for a time, but I mean, it's really going to be in the dumps just as far as we can project. Mm-hmm. So now that we have associated gas that's associated with the drilling process for oil, there's just tons of it. And then also there's a bunch of different types of wells. Like there's a bunch of old wells in Oklahoma that, they've been producing for decades. And it's not just like the EPA requiring flaring. It could be like a little small guy in, nowhere Oklahoma or Kansas who just can't sell their oil or their gas for a good price, because the like a pipeline company owns all the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of at the mercy of deals or
just to get it there, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so and we can come in and say, hey, look, we can buy your gas from you for a better deal than you can sell it.
Yeah, and we can bring in this mini turbine, and we can just start pumping out Bitcoin.
Yeah, we need no infrastructure. We can have it on site in 2 weeks if you want, that kind of thing. So
when you're proposing these things, are you really pitching it as a way for them to get into Bitcoin, or is it like you kind of keep that Bitcoin thing to yourself and you kind of show yourself as more as a solution?
Well, I've had quite a bit of experience. I'm here in Houston or in Austin on business. And I've been having, like, just this morning, discussions with well owners, and it is something that I probably had these discussions with 20 or so of these well owners, and so it's always sort of a play it by ear scenario. For most people, they are uninterested in, like if someone came up to me and said, you want to get in the grocery store business, it's a great business, you make lots of money. It's like, I don't care about the grocery store business personally. But with some guys, like recently, found an individual, he's hearing about this, and he's like, I went in on the business side. And, we'd be very blunt with them and say, what are your priorities? Cash on the table, or are you interested in this industry? Are you wanting to work on a partnership? And we're finding more and more people as they catch on, wanting to really get into the business side of the Bitcoin.
Yeah. Because I was just talking to somebody the other day, and they were in the oil and gas industry, and they seemed to indicate that they had a significant amount of capital that they could put into something like this. And actually, they were looking at buying like a whole container full of brand new S19s.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well,
Yes.
that's great, but hey, if this is your very first project and you're trying to dip your toe into this and learn from it, there's maybe some better ways to get into it. Like Charlie, I'm sure like you bought some of the older models.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So when I broke them, or when I overheated them, or I didn't hook them up right, it'd be a low cost failure.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. So from what I understand, there's definitely a lot of potential capital to be invested. But Christian, like you said, it really depends on where they're at with their company, or really what their desires are.
And everyone's situation is so different. It is a very, very heavily negotiated process. I'm learning very much, that the oil and gas business, they play all their cards very close to their chest.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason it's a good old boy system, and some people, it's just who knows who. It's this very much built on trust that is built over years. We're dealing with well owners who they're not used to really stepping out of the comfort zone, but due to this sort of desperate situation they're finding themselves in, they're more willing to make a deal. I would say that alone is contributing more to this cooperation being more of a possibility, because people are just, when they're hurting, they're just much more willing to look for alternatives. If everything's smooth sailing, you're not really looking around testing new things. So it's really something you have to play by ear. Every gas well owner I talk to has a different situation. They have different relationships they're committed to. They have different prices that are beneficial to them. So yeah, it is definitely a dynamic situation.
Yeah, and the oil and gas industry is not risk averse. I mean, they are one of the riskiest, most
Sure.
Sure. They
market
really
changes, regulation changes, all kind,
they'll deploy massive amounts of capital for exploratory wells, right? The thing is, they don't want to deal with something they're not familiar with. And if you want to talk about the riskiest, most knee-jerky, word out there, it's Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because they
I don't think so.
Yeah, they throw up a lot of barriers. So I think early on it's going to be a very you got to be tactful. You got to tread this tightrope of language, and maybe not lead with Bitcoin, because I
want to buy your gas and make electricity, but I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do with that electricity.
Or you say, hear me out. I can buy your gas for more than you can sell it for. You can make more money partnering with me. That kind of thing. You can say distributed data center, gas, monetization. I've been trying the term digital pipeline, because I think that's just the coolest term ever.
Yeah.
Right.
That rings very well yet, but once people see this demonstrated, and there's a handful of companies out there, only really just a handful here in North America. There's a handful of companies out there who are doing this, and once some of it's demonstrated and the word on the street gets out, I think
it's going to go like wildfire.
Be more upfront. Say, we're mining Bitcoin. Let's talk about how we develop that partnership. And again, you can, digital pipeline. I think that's one of the coolest terms. So yeah, we have an oil and gas guy on the team, a guy who actually drills wells, works for a major producer here located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You got to have someone who knows the business, someone who knows the specific contract law, specific regulations, because every state's different. And all these, I know a lot of I've heard other companies who are doing this Bitcoin mining at the well site thing, and they all talk about, well, it's a simple concept, but there's all these nuances of how you actually set it up. And maybe the pipeline has an acreage position, which means that the gas is the perfect situation. You have the perfect relationship with the producer, but the pipeline might actually own all the land. And if you're undercutting them in a deal, they don't like that, and they can call dibs on your stuff. And
interesting.
There's a million situations, all nuanced in their own specific way. So you need someone who really knows the area and knows
the right people, to get things done.
It really is something that I did not give oil and gas, as an industry, the credit for just how complex it was going to be. I've been receiving a tremendous education over the past several months, and it's been really fascinating, really making me appreciate the industry as a whole. But one thing about it, just the political climate around it, the regulatory climate, the local laws, the contractual agreements between the individuals, contractual agreements on the equipment, sourcing the equipment. I mean, this was something I initially, in my mind, was, there's gas coming out of a pipe in the ground, and we burn it, and we make money.
Yeah,
all right.
It's that simple. It's just easy.
It's what could go wrong? Turns out 100 years worth of precedent, there's a reason that it's difficult.
Yeah, and I know there's other things when you're starting to involve crypto mining into that, you might not even actually be able to get onto the land because you need to be certified in, you have to have OSHA, you have to have a hard hat. So it's not just as easy, like you said, as just, whatever, maybe putting a container there and plugging it in and saying, okay, let's start mining Bitcoin.
Crypto miners come from a world of the Wild West of regulatory body where there is none. And we sort of love that privilege that comes with the internet, of it largely just kind of you doing your own thing. And so entering this world where you really have to conform, and the oversight before you can make or break your business is something that you have to adjust to.
Absolutely.
Scott, I was just going to say, let's take a moment to take a look at crypto mining tools. And after we look over that, then Christian, I want to hear all about, now, is it a firmware or is it just a way to control your mining operation?
It's not a firmware. It is purely a way to give yourself a single pane view, and I guess I can sort of show it right here.
Well, not yet. First, I want to go into our crypto mining tools, and then after we do an overview, we'll go straight into that.
And then I want to know about Charlie, your podcast. So we'll talk a little bit about that after too.
Yeah, sure.
All right, go ahead.
So our industry is constantly evolving and it's constantly changing. And Scott and I both recognized this very early on, and we wanted to kind of become the industry resource where everybody can come and they can become educated and learn, about crypto mining. And we have an awesome calculator that we've created for our viewers. And I wanted to bring out some features just real quick. If you can open up that panel, Scott. I wanted to show everybody that we have a basic and we have an advanced calculation. And one of the things that makes our advanced calculation more, I guess you would say, useful than other calculators is not only can we factor in, price change, difficulty, but we can also factor in things like uptime. It's all those little tiny details that other calculators don't factor in. And from popular requests, we actually have a quantity value too. So you may have noticed in other calculators, you would just have to multiply the terahash of one miner and then, kind of figure out what your calculations were there. Well, with ours, you can put in directly, an uptime or exactly how many miners you want to calculate the total amount to get that total value. We're constantly updating our list of miners and the specs on those miners, so everything stays as accurate and as up to date as possible. And then from there, once you found a miner that you think is, a good value or something that you want to mine with or bring into your farm, you can go to our comparison app and you can compare it to the other miners out there in the market. And you can compare many values, not just its performance, not just its efficiency, but what about cost? That capital expense is a big factor in getting your return on investment. And you can compare it with our comparison app. And then after that, after you've affirmed everything, you can go to our shop app. And with our shop app, you can literally shop in the marketplace. Only sellers that are vetted through Scott and myself and go through our verification, know your customer, and know your seller process can list on this site. So you don't have to worry about, hey, going into some shady chat room and saying, I want to buy this. And somebody says, yeah, I've got and I've got a great price or whatever. At the very least, you can go here and you can confirm market price. You can make sure that, the price you're being offered in the chat room, is it realistic? Is it above market? Is it below market? It's a great resource to safely make your purchase. And then finally, and this is how you and Charlie met, Christian, you can then shop around for hosting. You can shop around for a company that will host your gear for you. Let's say you want to get in this industry, but you don't want to put in all that crazy capital expense or anything like that. You just want to pour in your capital into these miners and then get them to a facility where they're mining. Here you can go through, and it's very interactive. It's really cool. It's a map system. You can go through the map. You can search by location. You can search by, what your power rates that you want it to be. And there's several different power options too. So it's not just simple managed hosting. You can go into co-location, or you can go into straight up power purchase agreements. And that's where I hope, someone like Charlie and other people like Charlie in the industry will really connect with me and Scott in the future, because we can list your power that you can sell on our system. It's ready to go. And when we have somebody who comes in who's searching for that power, they can then easily find you. It doesn't have to be, you have to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody anymore. And that's it. That's our system so far. We're constantly evolving it. We're constantly improving it. Like to, just keep coming back and check up on it. You're going to see a lot of new improvements continually happen over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
That's been fantastically impressive. I mean, I love all the features and the additional little inputs that nobody really thinks about or considers, in the grand scheme of things that are real things. Because what 100% uptime doesn't exist. It's not a thing. So no one ever factors that in, or particularly your reduced earnings over time, all kind. That looks really tricky, and I really love that option for you to have a map view when you're looking around to figure out, okay, where exactly are these facilities, and that I'm stored by. That is such an important thing to really ground people to the reality of where this equipment is. So, bravo, great job putting that to the site together. It looks great.
Yeah, the first calculator that I actually ever trusted online was Crypto Miner Tools. So that's really led me into a lot of the Scott Offord's suite of stuff that you're involved in.
Awesome. So Charlie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast? Because that's kind of where I heard about you first.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mentioned that my family has a small oil and gas consulting business. 60-year-old company started by my grandfather. Now my dad and my uncle operate it. You can see them there.
Yeah, the drill down. I love that.
Yeah, I don't work for Spears & Associates, but I do help guide them. I call it dragging the firm kicking and screaming into the 21st century. And so, the thing we've really been able to do and have success with is this podcast, which is really just a way to export Richard and John's already wonderful personalities beyond that of a conference room. And it's just the short 10, 15-minute episodes, topical about stuff in the oil and gas industry, generally the upstream drilling side, some of the global macro environment stuff. But yeah, you can see we did a whole series on ESG, that's environmental safety and government, which is a going to be a defining narrative in the oil and gas industry going forward, and ties pretty well into the whole mining off well gas thing. But we've done that, and that's been pretty successful. Yeah. So there's some videos associated with that, and that's a nice, again, that those a lot of the information and data in those in that podcast is comes from the series of reports that Spears sells, and then some of that is a partnership between me and Spears. So
awesome. Yeah,
that is really cool.
That's great so far.
All right, Christian, I'm ready. Let's hear about your mine farm management.
Okay. Well, OptMine's kind of my little brainchild that birthed out of necessity, just because, in my opinion, there's many, many different competitors, and a lot of them do things well, but none of them seem to do all the things well. They'll all have one sort of unique little feature I like. And so I'm pretty much just pulling together everything that I know really matters.
The best of the best.
Right. I get the impression sometimes looking at these softwares that they were made by somebody who, was very passionate and, worked on crypto mining, is involved in the industry, but they didn't have day-to-day experience actually managing like hundreds and thousands of rigs.
Yeah. They were just doing it for that one machine they were trying to, tune. And
without having that day-to-day sort of experience, and without really feeling those pain points and knowing like where you really get frustrated in the process, it can be difficult to know what features you really need to prioritize and what is going to make a mine more profitable. So, first thing right off the bat was making sure it was a dev fee type fee, kind of like you already have with a lot of the solving software in the GPU mining world. They all charge on a dev fee basis, which is a perfect model.
Can you give our audience a little bit of an idea of what the dev fee can be? Just a ballpark. It doesn't have to be specific.
We're just planning to charge, like, for every hour the software runs, it runs 60 seconds for us. So that works out to around 1% to 2%.
Oh, okay.
So it's purely a time thing. That makes the most sense to implement. If you attempt to implement it in other ways, it can get very technical and require a lot of involvement with the developer of the solvers, which that can be difficult to manage sometimes. So yeah, we just charge purely as a percentage of time of your overall operating, with a guarantee that, and we establish a baseline of your farm's profitability, and we can guarantee an increase in hash what we will charge.
So if it doesn't make it doesn't cost anything.
Absolutely.
That is really awesome.
Absolutely. And that is a pretty easy guarantee for me to make, because the industry right now is just rife with inefficiencies. I mean, it's pretty standard, I would say, for me to be able to squeeze out an extra 20% of efficiency out of a lot of farms.
And these are air-cooled miners? These are not liquid-cooled or immersion?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it has to do with the profit switching algorithms that are set up. A lot of them, there are mining solutions that have profit switching in place, but they're not really reactive enough. A lot of times they require the miner operator to have wallets set up. So if you wanted to take part, or let's be more specific, Raven proof of work algorithm that was updated to the cloud. They required the miners to be updated, and if they weren't, you would not be mining. Well, we can just sort of predict and manage all these things in the background. It's a pretty much totally hands-off experience for our users. They're just going to have the confidence that with our software installed on their machine, you'll always be mining on the most profitable currency, and your GPU is always going to be tuned optimally for whatever algorithm it's running. Between different algorithms, GPUs are stressed in different ways, and an overclocking profile for the ETH hash algorithm may crash when you switch that GPU to a Monero algorithm. So we sort of just draw from our vast experience in this area and design a really, really cool feature set to address the issues.
That is awesome. That is really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think that's going to wrap up our podcast. Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Scott?
No. So I'll just put this on the screen here. Charlie, on Telegram, you are CB Spears.
I believe.
And
So-
yeah, I just copy and paste that. So
CB Spears,
That's
Charlie,
correct. I had to
reach
check.
out on Telegram.
Yep.
And then let's see, for you, Christian, I don't know if you have an actual handle on Telegram, but what are you on Twitter?
On Twitter, it's just Colossus Process. Just type E. Let's see here.
Let's see. Okay, and it looks like maybe he's frozen there a little bit.
Christian's in Austin wheeling and dealing for us. He's broadcasting out of a hotel. So
Yeah, hotel internet is famously not very good.
But the best place to reach me is just my email, christian@colossusprocessing.com.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay. Well, hey guys, it was great to have you on. Talk a little bit about Bitcoin mining and oil and gas.
Yeah, I learned a lot. I really did.
yeah, thanks guys. Well, I really like your podcast. When we have more specific information about exactly what our proof of concept looks like, we'd love to talk about that.
Absolutely.
So look for us.
Really impressed with you. It's really cool to see that off. I'm definitely going to have to experiment around with it some more. I'll be using it a lot in the future.
Absolutely. All right, man. See you guys. Take
Adios.
care.
Bye.
Bye.